Good morning and welcome on behalf of my colleagues at FICCI, Asad, Sadhana, Sanjeev, Vikash and Manish who are back home at FICCI. Welcome to each one of you and a big thank you to the Bangalore International Center and our partners, British Council, UNESCO and the Ministry of Culture. Everybody, keeps talking about India's great cultural diversity and our great cultural heritage. But when it comes to putting money on the table, we know that that continues to be a problem. That's when the problem sort of sets in. Culture is alive and kicking. We've just seen this beautiful performance by these young people. And I keep saying everywhere in the world that in India, culture is alive and kicking despite government. Young people today continue to want to learn their Carnatic violin, their North Indian gharanas, their South Indian vocal gharanas, their dance, their kuchipudis, their Bharatnatyams, their Kathaks. They want to go to the Baroda School of Painting. They want to create installations. They want to think creatively. When these young people came up onto the stage, each of you would have noticed the different clothes that they wore. All of that is part of our creative sector. Telonia, whose wonderful exhibition is downstairs, coinciding with this conference, when you walk through and look at each of those products, it is articulation of our cultural richness and heritage. But it also tells you how this has been created. During COVID, one of the things we were told by the ministries back home in Delhi was that, why doesn't everybody in the cultural sector who's suffering join the MG Narega program? And I had to push back and I said that, for every piece of creative work, say whether it was needle or weaving or stitching, it takes 1 million times of action to build muscle memory. To be able to sing in the way that these kids did as a choir, but also independently, look at the number of hours that would have gone into their training every day, every hour. Arundhati Nag, who's doing her 20th anniversary of Rang Shankara, look at the kind of effort that the theater practitioners, not just the actors and the directors, but the lighting people, the designers, the costume folks, those who've created the spaces. Look at the amount of work that's gone into that. So when we look at the creative sector, sometimes we forget that it looks at all of this. I've just come back from Hong Kong, where I'd gone for the HKPX, which was Hong Kong's first convening for their cultural and creative sector. I was gobsmacked. Some of the numbers that were spun out there. This particular conference was hosted at the West Kowloon Cultural District, which is a new district in Kowloon on reclaimed land. It's a place that didn't have much activity, and they decided that they would create this as a cultural district. The investment into that district over these last 7 to 10 years has already been $27.3 billion. They're building a new cultural district, which is the East Kowloon on the other side of the island, for another $23.1 billion. The investment in the Greater Bay Area, Hong Kong area, which includes Macau and Guangzhou and Shenzhen, etc., for 10 years going forward is going to be $200 billion. Last year, the number that they shared with us is that, as many of you know, China has, of course, public museums, but it also has private museums. They have a sum total of 6,336 museums. Last year, the footfall in these museums was 1.3 billion visitors, each paying approximately $20. So you can see how that economy can sustain itself in many ways and why it's important. So why do we need to have so many different cultural districts? Why do you have West Kowloon, and why do you have Hong Kong Island, and why do they need East Kowloon? It comes back to building communities. Today in Bangalore, when I landed yesterday, it started raining, despite Sudhir sort of saying, at 5 o'clock, it'll stop raining, and don't worry, I've timed the amount of time you'll take to come to directly to the house, so don't go to the Taj West End, come straight to the house, and it'll take you 1 hour, whatever, 35. It took us 2.5 hours to get from Bangalore airport to Epsilon. I think Arundhati took about an hour, 15 minutes or roughly to come from Rangchankara. So why is that important? Every district needs its cultural offering. In Brazil, what they do is every district, say Indiranagar, would have its own cultural center. It would have an auditorium or auditoria. It would have exhibition spaces. It would have a gymnasium, a swimming pool, a library, spaces for NGO offices, spaces for rehearsals. How does it get funded? The traders in that area pay 1% as cultural tax. That money gets then put into this particular space and helps fund all the NGOs or all of the companies working in theater, music, dance, and all of the wonderful design that they do for the Rio Carnival. What do the traders get in return? One is, of course, they get more traffic into their area, but more importantly, what they get is tickets through the year for shows that are happening in that cultural center. So you automatically get an audience who's committed. You automatically get sustained investment into the cultural communities. Most importantly, in places like Brazil, this takes away from the streets young people who would otherwise become part of favela, drug, or police gangs. The first time when I went to Rio, I went to a police-run favela. Many of you may know the Copacabana beach, so at the end of that is the Intercontinental Hotel, and opposite that is the favela. And I went to see a project where they were doing theater. They were doing Hamlet, in fact, and they wanted to show me their version of Hamlet. So we were on the top floor of the terrace where they were doing this performance for me. I kept hearing gunshots, so I looked over the terrace into the alley. So one group of kids, to me from up there, they seemed to be 11 to 14 years old, were shooting at another group of kids, 11 to 14 years old. The police came and then shot both lots of kids. And then even while I was trying to stop this performance to say, shouldn't we go and intervene? And they said, no, it's okay. This happens every day. And through that 1.5 hours, every time that I peeped over, the fire engines came, washed away the blood, the ambulances came, took away the blood. Nothing stopped. It was part of their regular work. When I used to sit on the Arts Council of England's advisory board, long hair, so I get to sit on many of these boards, and many of you know, the London riots happened. Of course, now London riots are fairly regular. In this case, it was pretty much the first of many riots. There was a blackout in London, the grid tripped, and there were riots. We were convened and we were asked to come back by the city to see, give us a sense of what had happened. And I said, why don't you do a survey on where the city had shut down community and cultural spaces and look at it in terms of where these riots happened. And everybody said, oh, no, there's no connection, this is culture and that. And I said, very rarely have I asked you to do something, do this research. 3 months later, the report came back. It was a perfect match. Why is that extraordinary? When you don't have spaces for cultural offerings, where young people and not so young people and older people, everybody who needs to articulate their talent their ideas, they have no option than to be on the streets, be it homeless people, be it young people, and they'll be part of gangs, they'll be part of peer groups which have no option but to show how macho they are and be part of crime groups. Today, as cities grow in India, it is vital to have not just one Bangalore International Center or one science gallery or one Rang Shankara or one museum of art and photography. We need many. And I think Bangalore has that vitality today. You have a large number of private museums, whether it's your sound museum or your music museum. You have institutions like Rang Shankara and so on and so forth. But we give to them grudgingly. I was asking Arundhati Nag, I said, have you begun your 20-year raise for on this particular occasion? She said, no, I'm too busy. I have to now think about doing that. And I said, no, you have to do that for the sustainability of these kinds of projects. And the other thing that's absolutely vital, Arundhati said, you know, I need to move on. I need to find somebody who will take on from me. Ravi, who's not here with us today, found Vikram and in many ways sort of parachute dropped him into Bangalore. And I use Vikram as a sort of example of why we need young practitioners, young cultural administrators to take forward the vision of what our cultural economy and sector needs today. It needs vitality. Our estimation, Pavitra is sitting here, our estimation is that over 400 million people receive either a primary or a secondary income from the creative sector. Much of the work that you'll see downstairs done by Tilonia are people in the agrarian economy. So between harvest and the next round of crop sowing, this is what they do. They work in crafts, they work in performance arts, the puppeteers, the langas, the manganias, and when in the district there's famine or drought or floods, you move to the next district with your wares to be able to support those families who need your support back in your village. This has been age old. Today there's this huge issue of migration. UNESCO, I forget in which year, 100-odd countries signed the UNESCO declaration saying there will be free travel between countries for artists. Why is that important? Because the West, or everything that we look at as the West, was made by the rest of the world. It's the ideas that travel from places like India, the math that the Brahma Bhats created here, the stories that we now know as the Arabian Nights traveled from here, went through to Arabia, was adapted into their own stories, and then traveled on to the West. The West wasn't born with the idea of democracy. I mean, for many of you who think that democracy first started in Greece, do remember that in Greece primarily they used young kids for sexual favors as part of their process. Democracy and all of these ideas that we see are ideas that have traveled and matured over a period of time by bringing people and communities together. That's why culture is important. If you read Martin Buckner's book on the history of printing and publishing, you will see how incredible it was that word shaped the world as we see today. Oral histories and our traditions of great folk tales is what has shaped us and continue to shape us. What is it that is alive and kicking today across the length and breadth of our country, however diverse it is? It is stories that unite us. It is stories that root us to our civilization, to our traditions, to our cultures, to our humanity, and engender, most importantly, empathy. When you look around the world today in the kind of horrors that you're seeing, whether it's wars and the genocide in Gaza, the wars in Ukraine, the forgotten wars of Darfur and the girls in Afghanistan who are not allowed to step out, culture can cut across all of this and unite us and help revive this planet. I want you to indulge me in a second, and everybody close your eyes. Close your eyes for a second. And think of an image that represents home for you. When you have that image, open your eyes. And anybody wants to share their image of home? Anyone? Yeah? Saw the earth as space as our home. It is our only home. It is our only home, and look what we do to it. We need to be sustainable. We need to love this home that we have. We need to be able to love each other and push back on the hatred. It may be somewhere else. Let me tell you, hatred is a virus that's endemic. It exists in each one of us, and it's triggered very easily. And that's what we need to push back on. Sunil is here, who's been doing wonderful work on Gandhi, and that's, again, one of the things that we all need to look back at as to what is it that he meant and what is it that he did, and why is he so important in the cultural context. But perhaps at some point of time, we'll get Sunil to say that to you. Sadly, Lily Pandey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Culture, who's again got great energy, was unable to join us today because they have a meeting that was convened on a Sunday. And Shah Faisal, who is the director of the Ministry of Culture, was called away for the first election duty briefing in Maharashtra. But we have Lily Pandey, who has sent us a message.
Namaste. It is a pleasure to speak to you today, even if it is through this video. First, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to Avid Learning, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Bangalore International Centre, ArtLinks Learning, UNESCO, British Council, and Teamwork Arts for organizing this important conversation on India's creative economy. Your efforts in bringing together such a diverse group of stakeholders, professionals, scholars, and creative practitioners are truly commendable. As we gather to build on the momentum generated through the discussions held in Mumbai and Kochi, it is vital to recognize the impact of creative sectors on our economy, well-being, and cultural identity. The Ministry of Culture Government of India is deeply committed to promoting this vibrant ecosystem. We are actively collaborating with a wide range of stakeholders, industry leaders, artists, creative entrepreneurs, and local communities to promote and preserve our rich cultural heritage while harnessing its potential for economic growth and job creation. Cultural heritage is the heartbeat of India's creative economy and sustainable development. On the international front, we have been participating in global dialogues while promoting cultural collaborations and exchanges to ensure that culture is represented at every table and includes the perspectives of the Global South. At the national level, in alignment with the whole of government approach, we are working closely with other ministries to integrate culture into broader development goals, ensuring cultural initiatives complement national priorities. Also, we are adopting best practices from state governments, fostering a unified effort to support and elevate creative and cultural industries across the country. I am particularly pleased to see the themes being explored at this conference. The public spaces and platforms that make creativity accessible to all, the intersection of arts, science, and economics driving creativity and innovation, and the role of arts education in shaping the creative leaders of tomorrow. All these themes collectively emphasize the need for inclusive participation, cross-sector collaboration, and investing in future generations to fully unlock the opportunities of creative economy. Although I am unable to join you in Bangalore due to official engagements, I am excited about the insights and best practices that will emerge from today's discussions. Together, we can shape policies that will enhance and sustain India's creative landscape. I look forward to hearing about the outcomes of this conference and hope to engage further in the future. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Earlier this year at the UNESCO conference or convening in Delhi, the Prime Minister of India, after about 9 years of fairly hard lobbying, declared the sector as a formal sector. And Joint Secretary Lily Pandey has been tasked with creating the policy of this. At FICCI, we've been working very closely with the Ministry of Culture to put together this policy document, which I think in the next few months will be out there for everybody to sort of respond to. One of the things that we've been doing across the country is really getting inputs. We were in Kerala earlier this year, followed by Bombay, now in Bangalore, and of course later we will go to the national conference in Delhi in November, and then follow that with another conference in Amritsar and the East. These are annual convenings that we've been doing to make sure that we're able to get as many inputs from folks like you. So at the end of every session, we will be opening up this to the House so that we can get some of your inputs as well. Thank you all very much, and once again, thank you Bangalore International Center and my colleagues. Yeah, and thank you all for joining this panel. Sorry we're missing Salma. I hope she's going to be able to come at some point of time today. Junhi, I'm going to start, in fact, Junhi, I'll come back to you. Let me start with Vikram. Vikram, I think it'll be wonderful to know why you decided, why you chose to leave Deutsche Bank from the dark side and come into the light and look at education and the arts.
How much time you guys got? Sarvan, is my mic on? I don't think so. Yeah, okay. I guess short answer is experiments in happiness. I think I went to the US to do my master's, just blinders on, got great jobs, was lucky to have great bosses, but made the mistake of starting to study philosophy at sort of at the peak of my corporate life, I suppose. And you know what they say, a little bit of philosophy makes you very happy, and just a little bit more makes you very sad. So go figure. But I think the larger point was that I felt that a life of service was where I wanted to be, whether it was in any field. And one could technically think of that even in corporate. But after some reflection, I figured education was going to be my thing. But funny aside, you know, how I've sort of come to this role is in 2008, which was the peak of the crisis there, and you know, working in corporate was really, really depressing. I took a year off. My wife was finishing a fellowship, so we had free housing. I got a year off in New York City. And part of that year, I got to intern, if you might, with the Indo-American Arts Council. Arun Shivdasani runs a fabulous organization in New York City. And I got to produce 2 festivals, the Erasing Borders Dance Festival and the Film Festival. And the arts kind of really took a hold of me. And, you know, at that point, I said, okay, this is a fun experience. I don't know where it fits into the larger scheme of things, but it all comes around, I suppose. But yeah, to answer your question, it's experiments in happiness.
It's not just the experiment in happiness, right? When the arts hooks you, or the creative sector hooks you, and it could be anything from design to technology to gaming to just management processes. The minute you start thinking creatively, it opens up a whole new world. And the vital aspect of this is that if you're looking at India as being an innovative enterprise economy, you have no choice but to look at arts and arts education today. It's vital. It's not optional anymore going into the future. Junhi, tell us, how did you come into the arts? I've never asked you this question. Where did your passion come from?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no,
Just hold this close to you.
okay, it's okay now. Yes. Actually, yes, I must say that I'm one of the luckiest one, because I know that it's, many people, they opt for a job for, better earning life, and then putting their passion behind. But I actually studied art history and then archaeology also in Paris. And then that linked me to UNESCO, and then which also I discovered lots of other work, like advocating status of artists, and also, at the time, UNESCO was, undertaking lots of big international projects. So yes, so it was, I think, not only UNESCO, but those who want to go to international agency, UN especially, we all say that, of course, there is the competencies, one thing, but you need to have some luck, because, the the door is quite narrow comparing to the number of people who would like. But we are not comparing to finance sector. We are not the best earning, in terms of finance. But I think I am really, the blessed by the God, that I work not for money, but for culture and cultural heritage, and for the status of artists, for some cause. So I think I am really blessed. And especially since I'm in India, I always say to people, I am really honored to serve this region, and particularly India, where the culture is so rich, but which I feel cannot leverage as much it is supposed, and where it comes also my commitment.
Janaka, same question. How did you get involved in the arts?
Well, I think one of the answers is here, Arundhati Nag. I think 18 years ago, I think I started working with a department called examinations in British Council. And within 48 hours, I think I was going a little nutsy. It's great. It's an important department, but obviously it was very difficult for me to do the processes. And I think I completely agree with you. It's also being at the right place at the right time, an element of luck, and also I think having a boss who was very flexible, because at the British Council we're sometimes more bureaucratic than governments even. So I think at that time, my then boss decided, she said, okay, you're feeling a lot of pain in this department. So within a year, you can't shift between sectors. But I got lucky and I started working in the arts as an arts manager. My baptism by fire was, I think, the partnership with Ranga Shankara. And the most enjoyable, but also the most exacting experience was Simon McBurney and Measure for Measure at Aru's theatre. So I think I learned so much on the job. You're very right, Sanjoy. I think I'm a STEM major, so I did study physics and applied mathematics, and I'm very fond of the subject. But I feel that when you mix not arts for the sake of arts, but actually sort of do an immersive program, either by learning it or by virtue of working in the arts, I think that combination is really important. It kind of gives you that sense of discipline. It also, you spoke about empathy, and I think there's so much of that in the arts. At the British Council, again, I completely echo what Junhi said. We're very, very fortunate. Obviously, we are not, it's not like a corporate, multinational company job, but the kind of things that we get to do, the visibility that our job gives us in terms of interacting with governments. On one internal call, I said that now is the time. I feel so happy that I'm leading British Council's work in South India. Nothing against, not a patch against the rest of India, but I think in the South, it's completely brilliant. If you look at all of the state governments, 95% of my work is with state governments. And if you look at the state governments in the South, and especially because education and culture are both concurrent subjects in the constitution, there's so much of autonomy, so much of political will to make things happen. In fact, from the Kochi event that you would organize, we're already in conversation with the Kerala government to see how we can work in creative economy. We've recently signed a memorandum of
So hold that. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit more detail on that, on mapping. Vikram, you've been so involved in education, and in fact, precursor to that, Arundhati Lin from Nityagram, and we've often said to people wanting careers in the arts that, listen, it's a lifestyle choice that you have to make. And you have to be very clear. If you want to, get your yacht and whatever, then join the banking. But if you want to get satisfaction and you want to look at having contributed something to community, then join the arts. My first job in the arts, I used to get 1,000 rupees, which I used to pay myself from Theatre Action Group, which I used to run. And my father-in-law said, so what's your day job? I said, no, I'm in theatre. So he said, no, meaning, how are you going to support my daughter? And I'm like, no, she's a manager in a big company, she's supporting us. But anyway, Vikram, in Delhi, much of the work that you did before you came here, I mean, we are seeing, or we've been advocating more and more the need for education to include both liberal arts education or arts education, but also science. Because you need to dream and think outside of the box, but you need the science part of it to be able to realize and create much of what we see in this room. So tell us a little bit about that, about your work there.
Just to qualify, I'm not a banker anymore, and I haven't been for 15 years. So
he's coming to the light. It's
yeah,
okay.
It means I'll be asking some of you for money too. So it's not current anymore. But to answer your point, Sanjoy, I think there are lots of interesting experiments. In fact, there's a university called Plaksha, which is reimagining engineering or technical education completely with a human lens or like a humanities lens. And one of the things that we were trying to do in Delhi is look at arts education from a point of view where young people are given an aesthetic lens to life. Not everyone will be an artist, not everyone will go do whatever, some form of art which they practice and they get validated for externally. And which is how art gets taught, and which is why someone like myself who never was good at any specific art form would then shy away from these classes, and you'd go into sports and you get into these compartments. But the world doesn't work like that, as we well know. And I think the idea of arts education has to come into schools in a way where you're just always being exposed to it. We're talking about it. Even when your classmate or your benchmate has made something, you're able to look at it and say, I like this because, I don't like this because, and you build your own view towards it. And then that feeds into science, right? I think, what is science if it's not serving imagination and helping us do something with those tools? And that only comes from a deep understanding of your own art.
Sides.
Yeah, exactly.
Junhi, in the news recently, especially in the Middle East and many parts, we were all horrified when the Bamiyan Buddhas were bombed. Every day today you're seeing somewhere in Israel or Palestine or Syria or Libya, bombings of huge cultural valuable spaces 1,800 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Why is it important for us to preserve heritage, built heritage?
Yes, you are right. For UNESCO, the creativity and then cultural heritage have been always two major pillars in the field of culture sector's work for more than now 70 years by now. And for UNESCO, there are two aspects related to cultural heritage which we must pay attention, and then that's why we also have to conserve heritage. First of all, cultural heritage is a very strong medium to forge a cultural identity. I don't want to say national identity here, but cultural identity. And secondly, cultural heritage is one of the few subjects which can unite all the different peoples. I think sports and the cultural heritage are those really unique items which can unite whatever their religion or whatever their social whatever. For example, UNESCO has already several projects and then cases which can showcase, for example, after the Yugoslavia was dismantled, I mean, there was, very strong conflict, and there was conservation project of Bridge Mostar, which was a heritage of both the Muslim people and then Christian people there. And the local communities there, they didn't hesitate even one moment to work together with the other side of the community to conserve that bridge which was bombarded. So I think this is one of the good examples, and we have so many also, Cyprus and also North Korea, both South Korean and North Korean people, they united for conservation of one heritage site, etc. So the cultural heritage, no doubt, has very strong the power to bond people together. And I think this is also one of the reasons nowadays, as you saw, the new phenomena, at least since 10 or 15 years, that all these militia, they target intentionally. Bamiyan is one of those. So, of course...
during the Arab Spring, the raid on the museum in Cairo, for example, was frightening.
Exactly. So actually, of course, it existed before, even 18th century. I think the Bamiyan Buddha was already damaged. I think at the time some also the... I will skip that part. But of course, 2001 shocked the whole world, and which triggers that declaration against intentional destruction by UNESCO with the international community. That declaration came 2003. And after this, we thought that it would be last time we would see such intentional barbaric destroy of heritage. But ironically, we see more and more. So, of course, it is very important. Of course, UNESCO raises its voices, international communities hand on together. But I think among the education is very important. All these militia people, if only they were educated, if only they understood with their heart, not with their reason, their brain, I think this kind of thing, it would not happen. So the heritage education, for example, even India, I think it is very important that we should change a bit paradigm. Many kids, they don't like history as a subject, and then they don't understand the heritage. For example, Delhi is one of the few cities with more than 1,000 years history. In the world, how many cities has 1,000 of history? I know Venice has 1,000 history, and then apart from Venice, there are only few. And if you roam around, Sanjoy, you know, all the strata, the Delhi Sultanate and then Mughals and the old British period, they are all scattered around. But people do not realize that they are just walking through like the books. These abandoned monuments are like books. And then they have all the stories. They tell you stories, but you are not equipped or ready to understand that story. If you see, for example, Lodi Garden, it's full of graffiti. These are tombs. But a bit of respect. And then if you just ready to listen to whatever these tombs says, and just sit and then think, contemplate, these are wonderful places. India is really, really one of the most blessed country with such the ancestors who built so much. But nowadays people, they don't realize it. And then full of graffiti, and then they don't clean. There is really, I feel there is a serious and then great need to nurture new generation of children to approach differently.
Through education. So Delhi, for example, has over 12,000 monuments, of which 1,900 odd monuments are listed monuments, meaning they either come under the Delhi Archaeological Survey, listed by INTAC or by the Archaeological Survey of India. Some years ago, perhaps some of you don't know, Taj in Agra was delisted as a monument for all of the obvious reasons which we won't go into right now. But Junhi, going back, to, you talked about Delhi right now. As you said, it's very important for us to be able to preserve these monuments because they are like books. They tell our stories. Sandhya showed us that image of Ajanta. So what does that image tell us? It allows us a window to a period we have no access to. But we know that that period, even today, influences our dress, the design, the color, the facial expression, the hairstyle. How many of you have been to Khajuraho? 1, 2, 3, okay, a few of you. So if you go to Khajuraho next time, and remember Khajuraho, most of the primary temples were completed by 999 AD. So it's over 1,000 years old. One of the friezes in the central temple will show you a woman with a handbag. It could well be a Louis Vuitton designed bag. So please look at it, look for it next time, or ask the guide. Because this is what informs us, that a society even then was contemporary as it is today. And that continues to evolve. Junhi, of course, we've been advocating very strongly that we need to open up museums and archaeological important sites for public, but do it in an interesting way. Have a space with good facilities, a museum shop, a museum history mapping place, good toilets, a cafe. More recently, there's been this big controversy about setting up a lift and serving wine in places like Humayun's tomb. Is that something that we should be doing, or in this case, why shouldn't we be doing it?
Yes, thank you, Sanjoy, for these very important questions. I mean, and this brings us naturally to cultural heritage tourism and its infrastructure. We all know that the cultural heritage and tourism are very closely related. I think according to the World Tourism Organization and then Travel and Tourism Councils, the tourism sector contribute to more than 10% of global jobs. And within the global tourism revenue, cultural heritage tourism share more than 40%. It's huge. So without cultural heritage, without cultural tourism sector can only be very much shrunken. So we see the power of already cultural heritage in bringing economic element here. And with this huge number, the responsibility also comes. I mean, in a nutshell, if cultural heritage is damaged, there is no tourism in that area. So, for example, I mean, you precisely mentioned about Humayun tombs. I mean, of course, UNESCO is not against any development project or any visitor management, visitor infrastructure. But we have to be careful when it comes to not only World Heritage, but to any cultural heritage sites. Because if the heritage site is damaged, normally their value and then the monument is irreplaceable. I mean, the damage once it is done. So we will lose it definitely. So therefore, in terms of tourism also, we consider protection of the site value should be placed at the heart of all the tourism policy. So we have to make carefully and in a way to respect the value and the spirit of the that site. Therefore, it is much more difficult. For example, now you mentioned Humayun new plan for controversial plan.
New plan. Luckily,
yes,
it's been.
Excellent. But I will also take an example of same site. They recently opened a new museum. Elaborated by the Aga Khan Trust for Culture for India. From outside, you don't even see, because it is sunken museum. It's such a heritage site. For example, actually the Humayun tomb and Nizamuddin Sunday nursery area, actually during the Mughal period was the necropolis. So I think when British made the nursery 100 years ago,
Sundar Nursery, it's called Sundar Nursery.
There should have been far more mausoleum here and there scattered. It's actually landscape. Mughal period landscape, which was partly erased. Now it's only left over a few, less than 10 mausoleum.
14.
Yes, and then 10 mausoleum, and 14, and then which was made now under the name of Sundar Nursery Park. So the landscape is very important. So actually the AKTC, in order to respect this landscape and in order to not build a structure which is intrusive, they have decided to make a museum, a sunk museum. How airy, and then how, because we don't see at all, it doesn't disturb at all the landscape. So if you want to have visitor management and visitor infrastructure, toilets, restaurants, okay, I also advocate that World Heritage Sites deserve to have such a facility to improve the experience of visitors, but it should be made much more careful way in order to not jeopardize the spirit and the value of a heritage site. So more specifically, of course, when the monument is not enlisted in the World Heritage List, of course, from UNESCO side, we can only advise the government of India because they have the full responsibility. But when it comes to World Heritage, then we have say too. So when World Heritage Center and World Heritage Committee can intervene, what is your plan? We would like to examine thoroughly. Please submit your plan for any development plan, which is now the classical procedure. So for any World Heritage site, any development plan, any tourism plan should be submitted prior to the World Heritage Center for the review and advice.
So just to clarify, so World Heritage Sites are both built heritage, but also natural heritage sites, and there's a number of them across the country, including a to-be-deemed site, which is the Kanchenjunga National Park, which hasn't been declared the World Heritage Site, but it's a to-be-deemed site. Janaka, during COVID, one of the numbers that came up was that the impact on the cultural and creative economy the world over at COVID was $2.1 trillion of loss. $2.1 trillion. So look at the contribution of this sector to economies across the world. Janaka, you folks decided to look at Durga Puja as a case study, and British Council really looked at mapping that, and it's become a seminal study. Basically 33, as Sadhana said, 33,000 crores or 3% of Bengal's GDP comes from Durga Puja. Now, if you were able to extrapolate that and look at Ganesh Chaturthi or Onam or any of the daily festivals that India has, look at the contribution to economy. When we did a survey about 12 years ago on the Jaipur Literature Festival, which happens for 5 days in Jaipur, the contribution to local economy across 5 sectors, which was hotels, transportation, block printing, textiles, furniture, and jewelry, at that point was estimated at 115 crores of additional contribution to the city's economy. Edinburgh's economy of the 4 weeks or 3 weeks of the Edinburgh Festival contributes over 279 million pounds of additional spend into Edinburgh's economy. Janika, why is it important for us to map these? Why is it important for us to have these figures? And also tell us about the new project that you are now sort of leading on in Karnataka. Tamil Nadu.
Hopefully Karnataka, let's see. I mean, thanks Sanjoy. I think when we started working on the Durga Puja, West Bengal has, I think that's the world's largest sort of public mass art festival. Other parts of the country don't have a single festival like that. I mean, Karnataka has festivals, so does Tamil Nadu and Kerala, but these are very small when you compare it to Durga Puja. Which is why I think doing the Durga Puja one was really good. It was very timely. We completed it pre-COVID, which was good. And again, I think the UNESCO title of Intangible Heritage, that helped as well. So I think the research kind of fed into all of these aspects. But once having done the Durga Puja report and the university, the good part about the Durga Puja research was that two universities came together. So IIT Kharagpur and Queen Mary University of London were commissioned to do the research. We put out an open call like we always do for each of our researchers. And there was an academic side to it, rather than just sort of, let's say, the numbers are great. I mean, the Chief Minister quotes the numbers, which is great, but I think the academic part of the report is really interesting to read because, like you say, people can, in other parts of the country, can then draw from it and decide to do what they want to do in their own sort of, spaces. So, for example, if you look at the UK, it is a global leader in creative economy. The creative economy sector is growing even faster than UK's economy, is what we're reading. And the UK...
11.8% of contribution to UK's economy, which is more than the banking sector, which is the reason why he ran away. He saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
Banking sector and power and energy sector combined.
Yeah.
So get these figures. So culture is not just jholawalas and long hair people who need to be funded. Yes, we need funding. Arun needs funding. BIC, but it's not just about that. It's actual contribution.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I think in 1997, I think the UK started thinking about creative economy, and the then government put down certain terms of references. And if you look at the creative economy and the cultural industries, as we now call it, there are so many areas, like Sanjoy was saying, it's not just theatre, not just art, or not just craft or textile, but now the most recent entrant is AVGC, which is audio, video, gaming, and animation. I keep saying audio, video, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics, and again, I think in terms of technology and arts, and I think Bangalore is a great example of how you've embraced technology in the arts, and there are so many women entrepreneurs who've actually started. Look at the Indian Music Experience, for instance, MAP, for instance, and the Science Gallery, and so many other institutions. But even if you've not institutionalized it, I think individual women, like one of our grantees who runs Java, Archana, who you know very well, has been doing amazing stuff. She ran the first, I think, South Asia's first digital climate festival in Bangalore. So I think if you look at other states besides West Bengal, I mean, Durga Puja being the shining example of what could be done, but if you look at other states and what we're now currently trying to do with Tamil Nadu, it's official now, so I can't talk about it. So we've now sort of entered into a memorandum of understanding with the government of Tamil Nadu, and it's feeding into the Chief Minister's Mr. Stalin's vision of $1 trillion economy by 2030. So we're looking at various sectors in the state of Tamil Nadu to actually map the GVA value of each of these sectors and how it contributes to the economic worth of the state. It will be a great story. Hopefully it'll get done in time, and the report will be out as well. In Kerala, we are having, after the roundtable that we did together in Kerala, I think the conversations in Kerala are very interesting because you've got Kerala Literature Festival, which is so big, and I, for one, did not know that it had 500,000 people come to it every year. So there are so many aspects to creative economy and cultural industries besides the festival economy. So that's what we're trying to do now, saying that can we learn from the UK, but again, can we also learn from what India is doing? Because I think in the G20 presidency, India, I think the Global South-South conversation was fantastic. The showcase was very good. So hopefully it'll all come together. And one of the things, I know you'll come to it later, Sanjoy, but just to sort of park the thought with everybody in the audience, I think in terms of arts practitioners and cultural industries, champions and spaces, I think we're doing fantastic. But in terms of policy making, I think there's a huge gap, and you are here from the NGMA as well, and I know we met in your earlier avatar with the Panchayat Raj. So I think, for me, I feel that if we are able to, as a group of practitioners, gently influence policy making.
Not gently anymore.
Okay.
Gently is done.
I was wearing the British Council hat. Influence policy making, not just at the center. The federal government, of course, will make its policy. It's a national policy. But because culture is a concurrent subject, states have this fantastic, unique advantage of actually doing something on their own. You don't have to really wait for something to happen at the federal level, because you can create your own, you can write your own rules. Of course, yes, you'll have to then, like education, you sort of, comply with UGC and the national apex bodies. The federal government is, in fact, we've been hearing, Faisal was there the last time, we've been hearing amazing stories about how, after the Prime Minister's announcement, there's a lot of focused conversation around how to make that policy change or policy document happen. But I feel that we are sitting in Karnataka. It'll be really amazing if we are able to script. States have their own budget, exactly. So it'll be really amazing if states started thinking, and especially with so many of you key influencers sitting in the audience and yourself, it'll be really lovely if the British Council can play a small role in making that happen.
So just to add to that, so the Kerala Startup Mission is pretty much part of our partnership in Kerala. Why the Startup Mission, which primarily looks at innovation? Exactly the reason why I said the arts, creativity, innovation, all of this comes today as one. We're running out of time, and I wanted to get a few questions from the house, so get that ready. Vikram, very quickly, and this is something that I think Arundhati will love. So when Coldplay was announced that they were coming to India, as many of you know, the waiting line for Coldplay tickets at one point was 10.2 million people wanting a ticket at an average ticket price of 7,500, which is right now at 35,000 because it's a dynamic pricing. So 10.2 million people are happy to pay to come to a creative or a cultural happening. BIC, Vikram, you folks have been doing everything here free, primarily as a give back to the community. Can you give us quickly a sense of why free? Should we not look at the value of the arts today much more seriously? How do we expect every artist to fend for himself or herself or themselves, given the way that the economy is, and given the way that we've seen the gig economy suffer when there is some kind of climatic or otherwise disaster?
The thing about these spontaneous panel discussions where you weren't aware that you're going to go on is that you think of a great...
Or be put on the spot.
You get a great answer for the last question when you're answering this one. So, just, which I will get. So just quickly, in literally one sentence, I think the role of arts in science education is the development of intuition. I think it really gets underestimated how much a role intuition plays in life, and the arts help you develop that, and nowhere is it more important than science. Now I'll answer your actual question. Thankfully, Ravi has answered this at many forums before, so I can just kind of dip into his answer. But two reasons primarily, Sanjoy. I think one is it's in our DNA. I mean, every institution has its DNA and they have their own belief systems. Our reason for existing is to provide audiences with high quality, well-organized events in arts, culture, conversations where there's no bar to entry. It's accessibility. And we firmly believe that our free model creates paying audiences in the future. That there are young people who come in here who would otherwise never buy a ticket and come see Hindustani classical music. But that sort of serendipitous discovery of the arts happens at BIC. And it's in our DNA, it's what we live to facilitate. The second thing is, I think, even for artists, we'd like to think we're very fair to artists. We pay reasonable honorariums for any artist who comes here. But more importantly, I think the opportunity is for an artist to come here and say, okay, these spaces, our spaces are very nominal to rent. It actually works out if you do a typical ticketed show. So for artists, the opportunity is to come here, do the first show with BIC, and then use our spaces to do further shows and kind of take that model forward. So I think those 2 points is where we live. And I think
so just to add to Vikram, remember at the end of the day, there is no free lunch. So what he hasn't said is to be able to support that, to continue to support BIC as a platform for performing and visual arts as well as conversations. They need money. So please, those of you, philanthropic mindset, many of you in the room, remember, sign him a check.
And in fact, I'd add the third point very quickly is, we are unique in that sense because we have a rental model. So we do 500 events a year, which are our events. We do 750 additional events, which are rental events, which subsidize those 500 events. So even our need for funding, for donor funding, is actually well within our control. It doesn't give us anxiety. And so to do 1250 events a year, almost more than 3 a day, and hats off to our tech team sitting there. They get beat up a lot, but they do, 3 events a day, and it takes something to put that together on a daily basis.
Junhi, I'm going to end with you before I open it up. What is it that built heritage or world heritage sites contribute to local economies once they're listed as a world heritage site? What is the contribution to local economy?
I think it is a very good subject for actually the study. We all know that, for example, that once the monument or site is enlisted in the World Heritage, the number of visitors, it's not just increasing, but it's rocketed. So clearly there is the influence of impact, the economic impact with the inscription of a site in the list. For example, in France, they also made a study. Once the monument is increased, it's enlisted, and then it's the number of visitors is 3 times. So clearly there is an impact. But we have to ask a question whether the increase of visitor can actually benefit local communities. India, you have the best example, which is the other side of the case, Agra, in Taj Mahal. I heard sometimes or certain days it has 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 ticket coming. It means the visitors coming to Taj Mahal per day. 70,000. It's unbelievable. But what is the benefit for local community? It all goes to ASI. Okay, ASI, I think there is a percentage which goes to state government, which is supposed to make some maintenance in the vicinity, etc. But in this case, we all know that the real benefit for local community is almost zero, if not to say minus. So we have to really rethink, what is the number of visitors, what is the pattern of tourism? In this case, I think the government should really be mobilized to try to divert this benefit to local community. They feel marginalized. They feel completely disconnected from the Taj Mahal, and not only Taj Mahal, from the major monument. And then the case of Agra is very serious because it's not only Agra has many major monuments. Agra Fort, I saw there is also Akbar tombs in Sikandar, Mariam's tombs. And then actually the Agra was in the 18th, 19th century, it was the city of garden. And then probably one of the most beautiful city, and with its local community. And if you go to Tajganj area, there are mosques and then temples which are predate to Taj Mahal. So I think here we see the vacuum of policy, tourism policy, and the strategy. Therefore, I think now India has hosted the G20, which went wonderfully and then successfully thanks to the efforts of the government. And then now the World Heritage Committee, it also went very well. The India government is now everywhere in the world they know the soft power of India. Now it's the time for formulating the policy and the strategy to shape whatever India has into a more sustainable way.
So sustainable tourism is what's absolutely essential. One of the problems with Agra, and some of you will understand this, is that Agra doesn't have any nightlife. So people come in during the day and they leave. Most cities today look at how can you retain people for at least one night and extend it to 3 nights. That's when it starts contributing to local economy. Machu Picchu, for example, in a 150-mile radius of Machu Picchu, every community there gets contributed into because of the routing of tourists into Machu Picchu. 150 miles. And it is 84% of the economy in that area. It's huge. And these are some of the things that we need to rethink, especially in the Taj Mahal context. How many people is sustainable? What is it that we need to do? Do we need to find other ways? Can we direct people to Sikandar? Can we direct people to Agra Fort? Can we create something in Agra Fort that makes it exciting for people to stay back? So these are some of the questions. Okay, so Vikram, Janaka, Junhi, thank you so much.